ADHD hyperactivity shows up or hides in adults? Because sometimes it's not your body that's hyper, sometimes it's your brain that's acting like a toddler trying to do CrossFit. Number one, your thoughts interrupt your own thoughts. Your inner monologue never shuts up. You can be halfway through one thought when another thought interrupts that thought, and suddenly you're thinking about something that happened in 2009, and the next thing you know, you're planning a party. It's like you're having a staff meeting with all of your own selves. Number two, you pace, but it doesn't look like pacing. You're just constantly moving. You change positions a lot. You sit on your feet, you don't sit on your feet. You cross your legs, you uncross your legs. You bite your nails, you twirl your hair. You are constantly in movement without even realizing it. Number three, you never just relax. Sure, you watch TV, but you also fold clothes, play on your phone, read a book while you do that. And if you do try to relax, you feel guilty or lazy. Number four, you interrupt people, not because you're rude, not even because you meant to, but because your brain lacks a filter. For one, we're a little bit impulsive. For two, your brain knows instinctively that if you don't blurt out whatever you're thinking right now, there's a 78% chance that it's never coming back. So your mouth hits send before your brain can proofread. And number five, you invent errands. You get up to fill your water bottle, then you check the mail, or pretend to check the mail. Then you grab a load of laundry that you're not gonna finish. Then you feed the cat. Then you remember something that you needed to research real fast. 20 minutes later, you're standing in the kitchen trying to remember what you were doing in the first place. As we get older, we often create movement with what feels like purpose.
Okay, I've got no idea why that froze. But I thought that was so fitting after some of my recent live streams where I've just been so ADHD and the squirrels have been running loose. So yeah, I thought I'd share that, but yeah, didn't quite get all of it. I will be putting out a full update later today. I had considered doing a live stream after this one, but it didn't actually. I thought I'd recorded the press conference, but I didn't. I finally have some updates with Genesis Reed. I'll just play. There's a short news piece that I just found. Essentially, it doesn't sound like they've had any success, and it looks like they may not ever find little Genesis unless her mother says something. So just quickly playing the news clip, and then we will be heading back to talking about Lily and Jack.
After weeks of investigating the death of a 2-year-old in Enterprise, this evening we're learning new updates regarding the search for 2-year-old Genesis Nova Reed's body. Specifically, that officials are concluding the search in the Coffee County landfill. WDHN's Camila Figueroa is live in Enterprise, where a press conference has just wrapped up regarding the investigation. Camila, what did you learn?
Hi, Joseph. As you can see, I just came out of the meeting right now, and obviously it had to start thunderstorming, but it's okay. It's live TV, but I got all the information you need to know. So after the meeting, they basically confirmed that they're done the search in Coffee County landfill, and they searched through 10 million pounds of trash and found 20,000 bones. None were human. So they're not sure, they don't have any other evidence that ties the search for Genesis Reed in any other location. Genesis Reed was found. Genesis Reed went missing in February, and her mom reported that she went missing, but her neighbor said that she was missing for 2 weeks, so she eventually got arrested and has since been, and she has been missing, and surveillance has showed that she has allegedly dumped her daughter's body in the trash on Christmas Day.
I have complete confidence in the work that was performed. If Genesis had been in the area we searched, I firmly believe these dedicated professionals would have found her. That leaves one painful question that continues to weigh on the hearts of this community. What happened to Genesis after Christmas night? Only one person truly knows where Genesis' remains are, and that person has repeatedly chosen deception over truth. While we may not yet have the answer to that question, our pursuit of justice has never stopped.
I'll just pause that for a minute. Just to, I know the reporter kind of screwed up the facts a bit there, but bear in mind that given that she's standing in pouring rain, she probably hasn't got anything in front of her for a prompt. So she was probably having to just try and remember it, try and come up with it just straight up without any prompts. Genesis was reported missing in February, but Adrian Reed actually ended her life on Christmas Day, sorry. So, you know, slight bit of correction there needed. Yeah, looks like they haven't had any success. Looks like Adrian is not helping. I think the only consolation is that I think they've got Adrian up for the DP, or they're going to be trying for the DP. Maybe that will convince her to talk.
Yes, as you can see, Adrian Reed, they said, is the sole actor tied to this case, so she will be still facing her charges. But at this meeting, all the officers want to say a huge thank you to everyone that came and volunteered and all the other organizations that came and helped with the search. It wasn't an easy feat, and it took a lot of financial help, so they appreciate all the help. Back to you in the studio, Joseph.
All right, thank you so much, Camilla. A big update in this case as this case does continue, and that they will continue to pursue justice. That's what Police Chief Michael Moore said there in Enterprise during this press conference. Again, this is...
I won't keep listening to him. I mean, this guy just kind of wombles on a bit. Ouch, you fell over on the way to the bus. 2 grazed knees and bad bruising. I hope you put some ice on that. Wow. Never a fun thing. I'm just going to say, welcome in, Camilla. You know, you could say anything in chat and I'd never know. But welcome in. So it's good to see people coming in. I just wanted to share that update with Genesis, and when I get organised and actually manage to get the proper press conference, I'll do it as a video, probably not as a live stream, because I don't know how long it's going to take me to actually record the press conference. Clearly I need to clean my phone out again and get rid of a bunch of videos and stuff, and make more space. So let's get back to Lily and Jack. Good to see you in here, BTTV. Wow, you guys are all hot, and I'm sitting here with the heater going flat out, and at the moment I've got my blanket wrapped around me. I could probably take the blanket off, but I think it's just become a habit, that ADHD thing. Welcome in, Ariel. Good to see you. Don't worry, the brain will kick in. Oh, that's the other thing I was going to talk about. Sarah Grace Patrick. This is the girl who used a firearm on her mother and her stepfather to end their lives. This is going back maybe 2 years now. She had a court appearance today. It's that whole sort of update ahead of trial, you know, just to make sure everything's on track. She's got a new lawyer, and it sounds like he's going to be one of these morons that just comes out with a whole bunch of BS nonstop. I know I covered her case when she was first arrested, and I had avoided it. I was not going to come back to it until the trial, because of all the toxic crap that was going on in the background, and because of the impact on the sister, Jamie, the husband like the stepfather, because of the impact on his sister and his family. I was kind of steering away from it, but I'm thinking I might do some Sarah Grace updates in the next couple of days. I do want to I have sort of asked Kelly what she thinks, so this is the best friend. I'm probably rambling here. I have checked first. I just want to make sure that Kim and Kelly aren't going to get too much toxic crap thrown at them if I start talking about the case again. But anyway, so possibly some updates on the Sarah Grace case as well. I don't think there's any other updates to give right now. I did an update last night for Layla Jeffrey. So that's up there in my videos if you haven't seen it. Looks like we're headed down the usual route with Australian justice, and the lawyer's going to try to claim disability and try and, get a minimal sentence for the guy, which I hope it isn't going to happen. And the thing that pisses me off is that, for me, it feels really close to home. It's only an hour and a half away. Our Premier of Victoria, that's like, the, I think Canadians call them premiers, and I'm not sure what, I guess it's kind of like governors or something in the States. She's from Bendigo, and she hasn't spoken once about, she hasn't come out and made any statements or anything. So, that's kind of pissing me off. But anyway, wow, so many people copping the heat. Yeah, I must admit I'm quite comfortable right now. I kind of like the weather, this sort of weather when you can kind of wrap yourself in a blanket, rather than just sweltering. Deborah, I can relate. I know exactly what you mean. Especially doesn't help when you have two chihuahuas who share your bed and they're like super, super hot water bottle blanket things. Okay, let's get on to Jack and Lily, and I'll pause this. So I wanted to come back to the audio with Belynda. There's still a bit that we haven't gone through. I think the first bit is stuff that I've already discussed in my previous live stream. I didn't do my usual thing of marking where I was at when I finished the live stream. So I apologise if I've gone back too far. Let's jump in.
But again, the thing about it is that, they're looking at scents that don't belong in the natural environment, right?
Malaya told me Friday night was when the one bloodhound was brought in.
Okay. Yes. That's in the dispatch. That's in the dispatch calls is when the dogs arrived. The first dog arrived. Yeah. I think it was a bit late. I think it was afternoonish.
And I realise now that's what I meant to do. I did make myself a list last night of things that I needed to do ahead of this live stream. One of them was to go into the dispatch and find out when the dogs arrived. And the other one was to find my map that shows property boundaries. And I forgot to do both. I might have to do like some YouTube shorts on those later today just to, put those bits out, because obviously we're going to be past them. Just let me make a note for myself. Um, okay, sorry. They were the cutest little kids. I love this little cardigan that Lily wore. This is one of, like, when she's wearing that little top, that's one of my favourite ones of her because she's just such a cutie. There's another one of her in that same little top, and she's posing, and she's just so adorable. Welcoming Carla. Yeah, I'm so grateful for Belynda and Chelsea for just their continued speaking out for Lily, for Jack, and for, for justice and for answers. It's truly inspiring. I mean, I don't know about everyone else, but I'm exhausted. I just want to see something happening in this case. So I can't imagine how exhausted Belynda must be. But she just keeps going. She's just amazing.
But it could be late afternoon. It all depends on
No, the
people's
the
terminology.
dogs were there late afternoon, but they were the air scent dogs or whatever that pick up just something that doesn't belong.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yep.
But
Okay.
there was a
Like I said, I'll check with the dispatch, but from memory, those air scent dogs were there within the first hour or so. I could be wrong, and I will check.
specific bloodhound that was brought in Friday night going by Malaya.
Okay. I haven't heard that either. Yeah, that's interesting. And some of this stuff may have been said in a general sense, right? And all mixed in, and nobody verified, bloodhound to, scent dogs, right?
Well, when I asked Major Crimes about the scent dogs, and I have to laugh.
Exactly. Because when they started bringing the searchers in, it was with the kayaker, it had basically reached the recovery phase from memory. So the dogs, the drone operators, the searchers all came straight across to Gairloch Road. And I'm pretty certain they were all there within the hour. I mean, I'm glad you're saying the same thing. And, I always like to just verify what I'm saying and make sure that I'm remembering correctly. But, I distinctly remember that they had the dogs there really, really quickly. They had the drone operators there really quickly, and the helicopter. Well, one helicopter was there quickly. I think the other one probably took another hour or so to get there. But within the first hour, I believe, they had dogs, drones, helicopters, and searchers. So it all happened very quickly. In terms of the bloodhound, timing-wise, it sounds like it arrived in time, or they might have called it in to search the area where the piece of blanket was found. And I'll have to go back and listen to the dispatch and see if I can hear anything specific about that. I know there was chatter around that time where someone was going to an area and they saw that the dog handler was there or something, but I do wonder if that's the reason why they had it come in around that time. Could just be that it had to come further.
Because people had stated about the way Daniel worded it when he described the scent dogs. But that's exactly what Major Crimes told me. They said it's not like in the movies.
Mm-hmm.
These dogs pick up a scent in the woods that doesn't belong there. That's
Correct.
why when we went to search, we weren't allowed on the new site, which was across the road towards Lansdowne Station area. That's where the search was Saturday when we went there. They still had searchers on Daniel's side, but the majority of the search was across the road.
Right. Yeah. And you're right. And
It's interesting that the search shifted across the road. Maybe one of the dogs did follow a scent down to the end of the road. But if they were air scent dogs, then they could have been following any scent. Like I said, we had people arriving pretty quickly from like Daniel's family, and we had people arriving and parking on the road from Malaya's family. So the dogs could have just tracked a scent down to the road of someone who had just arrived. So maybe that's why they were searching over the other side. And it's interesting, I have to go back over the more recent things that Daniel did, because he did make some comment about over that area, over on the other side of the road. And I hadn't paid much attention to it. But now when I hear Belynda saying that they were focusing over that side at that point, it does make you want to go and have another listen.
pick up any human. That's what they're trying to do, is pick up a scent that doesn't belong in the natural
Right.
environment.
Right. But Malaya specifically, because I said I wanted to know why wouldn't they bring in a bloodhound? And she said they do have one bloodhound that was brought in, and it arrived late Friday night.
And you're understanding the difference between a bloodhound
Yes.
and the scent dogs is what?
Yes. Well, the fact that you can give a bloodhound the scent of a person and it'll follow that scent.
Okay. Okay.
And she said they had one.
Okay.
Now, I did actually cover this bit of audio the other day because I remember discussing this. Yes, bloodhounds can be trained to do that, but RCMP have not confirmed if the dog that they brought in was trained for scent-specific tracking or if it was just trained for ground tracking. It's something that they are not providing an answer on. And I had a lengthy email discussion a week or so back over the dogs. I'm just going to leave it at that because I kind of felt that the answers I was getting made me think that it's a part of the investigation that they don't want to discuss. Yeah, well, if it was trained for scent-specific tracking, there was Wade mentioned that there was a piece of clothing sitting on one of the cars, like on one of the dead cars. And I can't remember what he said it was, but it was like, something of Lily's by the sound of it. It would be interesting to know. But, yeah, we can't be 100% certain that they were scent-specific. They could have just been, like, ground tracking dogs. And welcome in to Joyous. It's good to have you in here.
Yeah, well, again, I mean, it should have been picking up their scent all over that yard. If they came back from New Glasgow Thursday afternoon and into like 4 o'clock or whatever, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the kids are outside, playing and picking bugs and The bloodhound should have picked up that scent, unless the police were just simply not interested in the scent in the yard, knowing that the children likely had been in the yard, right?
Yes.
Lily's jacket. I thought that's what Wade said. I couldn't quite remember. Now, bearing in mind what we heard from Belynda about the boot prints being all over the bank, I would imagine that it would have been kind of pointless with the scent dogs, that they would have tracked the scents all over the property. Not just in the yard, but all over the bank and probably up to the little fort. So, yeah, I can see why they wouldn't really put much weight on that.
And were just simply interested in any scent that led towards or off the property. But why wouldn't they pick up a scent going off into the fort? I don't know. I guess the question would
Unless they still classify that as her property.
well, unless too, I don't know when the last time the kids were actually in the fort, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't go up in the fort on the Thursday. Maybe they hadn't been in the fort for days. Well,
I do believe the kids went up into the fort on Thursday, based on everything that Janie said, based on what Daniel has said, based on Malaya telling Belynda that that's where they like to play. I do think they were up in the fort on the Thursday afternoon. It makes me wonder why Janie tried so hard to convince us that they never go up there. Because while she tried to establish that early on, gradually the truth has leaked out. And it's become pretty clear that they did go up there quite frequently. Now, I was going to get a thing to show the property boundaries. Basically, the edge of Janie's property is the edge of that road that goes around up the side and around the back. So, before the road, if you're heading towards the cabin and the old schoolhouse or whatever it was.
every time you come up, every time we talk, Belynda, I always learn something new from you. And I really appreciate the time that you take. I really do.
I actually thought you would have known all that.
Oh, lots of stuff you said tonight I have not heard. No.
I apologize. I would have told you a lot sooner had I known, but I thought you knew all that.
You don't have to apologize at all. It's just
I haven't heard of the case of Taylor Williams. I'm not sure if I could look at another case like that right now. Not after Gervais' case, and now today hearing that they don't think they're going to find Genesis's remains. Too many people out there that are just should never have had kids, should never have had access to kids. It's heartbreaking. It really is. I have to agree with Susan on this. I wish we knew the things to ask Belynda that she knows about. As in, Belynda doesn't know what we don't know. And we don't know what Belynda knows that we haven't been told. But I hope that there's going to be more discussions between her and Susan, because it seems that the more Belynda talks, the more things come out that either she thought we already knew or that she hadn't really thought to mention. because listening through this audio, there's a lot of new stuff here. Some of it is just a reminder of things that we knew. I do recall hearing talk of a bloodhound and stuff like that. I do recall discussion of the scent dogs and everything. But the boot prints on the bank, that really changes my perspective. And I think it's significant. So things like that are super, super important, in my opinion.
Little things. It's the little things that you said that are of real interest to me. That a person wouldn't normally necessarily think to make a point of, right? I haven't heard about the bloodhound on the Friday night, though.
Yeah, I'll have to see if I can find that. I think I've got that in a text message from her.
Okay. Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah, I just haven't, I don't recall it in the dispatch calls either. The scent dogs they're mentioned in the dispatch calls, absolutely. The bloodhound, though, I don't know, unless I missed it. I guess I could have.
I don't think it was mentioned in the dispatch specifically as being a bloodhound. But I do recall the whole discussion of searching around the pipeline, and I'm pretty certain there was mention of someone there with a dog searching around the pipeline after they found the prints. If there were many footprints going up to the fort and only one footprint on the driveway, leads me to believe they were taken from the trailer. Could well be. It could also be that the one on the driveway was planted. It's curious, that's for sure. I mentioned in the video that I put out like a short discussion of the boot prints on the bank in terms of where they did the cast of the boot print on the driveway. I'd been viewing it from the thought that it must have been they took a cast because it was of evidentiary value. But it occurred to me that it could just be, given that there were so many boot prints around the place, it could just be that the boot print on the driveway, they decided to get a cast of it because it was the most intact. And that they wanted a cast for comparison for if they found other boot prints, possibly for comparison with the pipeline and stuff like that. I kind of feel that the one in the driveway could be a nothing burger, but we never know. Could be that Janie mistaking away the one in the driveway. Though it's interesting that the raking story is actually the second story. So she was telling Belynda that she was filling in potholes. Was she filling in? Well, she wasn't filling in potholes because some of the early photos that you see, you can see like water that's pooling on the driveway. So she's filling in potholes. She wasn't filling in many. But yeah, maybe she did forget to cover that one over.
I missed it. I have all of that, though. I have all the transcripts and everything from all of that. So I mean, I can double check that stuff. Did you ever talk to the RCMP about the bloodhound?
No, I never thought to question it.
It's still shocking to me how scarce these scent-specific dogs seem to be. Yeah.
It is interesting that in the United States, there are so many scent-specific dogs. And there are so many human remains detection dogs. And yet, in Canada, they seem to be quite some way behind that. They don't have a lot. And we seem to be in a similar situation here. Because I know that with the Samantha Murphy case, this is the woman who's missing over Ballarat Way, they brought a dog in, but they brought it in from New South Wales. So I'm guessing the cost of training them is probably prohibitive. Now I know that Halifax, which is I think where the best dogs in Nova Scotia are, I think Halifax have got a narcotics detection dog. But I guess they've got that bloodhound, but it depends on what that bloodhound is actually trained to do. But I don't know what other dogs they've got.
Well, when I heard Daniel's story about running in front of the helicopters and all that, it made me think that why would they allow him to be ahead? Because wouldn't that confuse the dog's scent? Wouldn't the dogs pick up his scent?
I think that was after they said he could go back in the woods, wasn't it?
I don't know.
It would have to be after they said he could go back in the woods, because according to Daniel, he got back like not long after the RCMP had arrived. So I think the helicopter would have arrived probably after that. And I would imagine that they were probably the reason they allowed him to go back in the woods was because they'd already swept with the dogs. And if they'd have picked up a scent with the dogs, then they wouldn't have allowed him back in the woods. It makes me wonder, though, going back to Daniel talking about him running ahead of the helicopters. And one time he's talking about the helicopter just kind of hovering above him. It takes me back to the comment I've made a few times where I wonder what footage they've got of Daniel. Because it certainly sounds that they would have footage, at least some, showing where he was on the day the children went missing. So I hope they've actually gone through that and tracked his movements. I'm pretty certain they would. But it certainly sounds like they have the opportunity to do so.
When we went there and asked if it was okay if we searched, and they said, well, we don't want anybody searching where the dogs are. And they explained that to me, and I told them that's no problem. She said, we've already searched this side, which was Daniel's side. She said, so you can research those areas if you want. We can't tell family not to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I think you're right, Charlotte, because I think they were onto them straight away. I mean, we know that they definitely had major crimes on day 2. But when you look at Malaya's story, you look at Daniel's story, when you look at the location, I think they would have sussed them out pretty quickly. And maybe the other reason for saying, when we heard over the dispatch where they're saying, you know, we want the mother to stay in the house in case the children come back, maybe the other reason for allowing him back in the woods was to keep him and Malaya separated. But it wouldn't surprise me in the least that they did put him back in the woods to see where he went. It also wouldn't surprise me if, given that on that first day they had 2 helicopters and 4 drones, it wouldn't surprise me in the least if one of those drones was actually tracking Daniel as opposed to searching for the children. I get the impression that they're not going to. I tried back in July or August to line things up to have Texas EquiSearch come in and help, because they've got every resource imaginable. I mean, they're the best at finding, you know, deceased individuals and stuff like that. But RCMP basically, because Texas EquiSearch were going to come in, apparently Belynda contacted them, and it was actually RCMP that said, no, we don't want them, or we don't need them, or something like that. I think behind the scenes, I think they're accessing a lot of technology. There was mention that they went over the area with a drone that was equipped with LiDAR, which is the one that maps the ground. Like, I've shown you those images several times where you see it kind of strips away the trees and all you see is the lay of the ground. So if they've gone over the area with LiDAR drones, that would help them to see any potential burial spots. Hopefully they will keep doing that, maybe over some private property. I don't know if they need a warrant or something for that. But I do think they've got some good technology behind them. But, you know, it would be a shame if there's agencies from the US that could help them if they're not actually accessing that. Yeah, Texas EquiSearch is the best. Absolutely, absolutely amazing. They've just gone above and beyond for 20-something years. And, you know, they're not slowing down. You know, they are the best. But I think potentially maybe the reason that they haven't got Texas EquiSearch in is because they believe that the location of the children is on private property. I mean, we don't know what knowledge they have. So, I mean, they've not been back themselves to search any areas that we know of, which to me says that they don't believe that the children's remains are anywhere readily accessible in the vicinity of the property. As in, they don't believe the children's remains are on public land. I could be wrong on that. It could just be that they've just not had any leads that would point them in the right direction. But we've had silence. We've had no additional searches prompted by anything. Yeah, I don't know what to think. I think the problem that they're facing is that they're dealing with locals who have an intimate knowledge of the area, and they're dealing with an area where a lot of the land is private land owned by family members of the individual who is potentially the number one suspect. The dog situation bothers me. I think there needs to be more funding put into having more dogs, more scent-specific trained dogs. You are so right about that, Lizette, and welcome in. Tim Miller is the best, bar none. I saw a news story a while back where he was talking about essentially, you know, he's done it for so long and it's hard work and it's taxing, it's exhausting. And he's still saying, look, you know, he promised his daughter that he would keep searching. And you've got people like Dave Rader and Twyla who are just so dedicated and just drop everything to go wherever. It's the whole organization. Like, obviously Tim Miller is a major inspiration for the people who are part of it, but there's some amazing people beside him as well. But he really deserves so many accolades for what he's created. When you think about scent dogs, drones, helicopters, drivers on the ground, drivers, on-ground searches, human and range detection dogs, not to mention the digital forensics and 15 months of nothing, unreal. Yep. Exactly. This is what bugs me so much. The Missing Persons Act allows for searches of property without a warrant. I can understand wanting to make sure that they're dotting their I's and crossing their T's. But a search of her RV, demanding she get her dog out of the RV or they will get a dog handler to remove the dog, that would hold up in court 100%. Because all they would have to do would be to quote the Missing Persons Act. So I agree with you. It was a major oversight. Major oversight. And yeah, welcome in Grover and Little Black Bear. Oops. Yeah. Mackenzie's and Martell's own so much property there. And they've got all those private property signs up now. I agree. I think because I think what was said was they were going to look at what Texas EquiSearch had in terms of technologies to see if there was anything useful, but they weren't likely to be getting them in. Going back to talking about And that's where it gets tricky, because they were able to search Earl's property because, as Daniel's father, that gave them enough of a connection to claim that, oh, well, we searched there because there's a possibility that maybe they went there to visit him. But in terms of searching the other properties owned by Martells and Mackenzies, they can only do that with a criminal investigation. So I think what we may see is that when the case is finally named up as a criminal investigation, when they finally start making arrests, I suspect what we're going to see is concurrent action. I wouldn't be surprised if at the same time that an arrest or arrests are being made, that search warrants are being basically used on properties at the same time. I hope so. I hope that is the case. Oh, Unky, that would be amazing. I could imagine meeting Tim Miller would just be phenomenal, because he is just amazing. Just amazing. I think the only properties they would have been able to get an access order for are ones where they could create some sort of direct link to the children, like with Earl saying, well, he's sort of like the step-grandfather. So, like, Ron's property, they may not have been able to make enough of a link with Ron to the children to make the suggestion to the court that maybe the children wandered off to his property. Because under the Missing Persons Act, they can't get warrants. Not unless they make it criminal. Thank you. So the RCMP can ask the provincial government for help from the federal government, like the military. And I guess if they thought that the children were somewhere in the woods, they might have considered doing that. But that's a really good point. Are you welcome in, Brookie? That's all good. Exactly. It's generally what you see in cases like this. It will be essentially no one will see it coming. They'll just rock up at the same time at different properties with warrants to do searches. And when they are doing that, they'll also be making an arrest, or 2 or 3. For all we know, they could have other outside agencies helping. I mean, they keep saying it's, one of the biggest investigations. They have got, aren't they using a forensic lab from a different province? I think from memory, the forensic lab that's got the blanket is from a different province. Yes, they do. Not just to guarantee that people are home, but the early morning searches also guarantee safety, because the forensic lab is in Ottawa. That's the one where they've got the blanket. I thought that was, yeah, that makes sense. It's also the safety side of it. Now, theoretically, you would expect with the Mackenzie families that, you know, they wouldn't be dumb enough to pull out a firearm if officers turned up to do a search. But safety-wise, they like to do searches like that early, basically turning up, catching them unawares. Yeah. That seems to be the main lab. It's good to see you in here. I was actually wondering earlier where you were. And it does appear, I do remember now mentioning in one of my live streams when we were talking about the blanket, and I was saying that clearly that must be like the main lab that's got the more expensive equipment, because some forensic equipment is really expensive. So, you know, it's not something that every forensic lab would have. Obviously, they've got smaller forensic labs around the country, and each province would have those smaller forensic labs that are equipped for, you know, easier testing and stuff. But when you're talking about those spectrometers or whatever they're called, you know, the things that use lasers and stuff like that, you're getting into big bucks for that sort of equipment. So, yeah, that would be why they've sent things outside of Nova Scotia. Just reading people's comments. Yeah. Hopefully they've got more than what we know. And the thing is, this is so right. It takes months to get things back from labs. I mean, they only got the information back on the blanket in November. So that's like 6 months it took to get those results. If they have any additional evidence that's been found since, then that could still be in labs. I still think that they must be getting close, but I do think they are kind of holding back with this, waiting for this case with Daniel to see where that goes. I just want to point one thing out, though. One thing that I find really, really interesting. So, as you know, Chance and Jordan have both been having a bit of time in the courts. And Jordan had his appearance again today. And this time, obviously, it's in the court lists. They've thrown 24 charges at Jordan. All firearms-related charges. And some of those charges have maximum sentences of up to 10 years. So I do wonder if they are putting pressure on people around Daniel as well to get more information. Yeah, Charlotte, 24 separate charges. Now, obviously, down the track, they will be merged. Usually what the case is. But when they throw that many charges at a person, they're serious. Let's have a look what's on here. Now, see, and that when they did that testing, when they supposedly took the blood testing, DNA and stuff, that was around the same time that the forensics came back on the blanket. But it also could have been in the lead up to this other case. I think they're just being really, really thorough. Oh yeah, definitely. It's a common tactic that you see. I would imagine that if you were to actually look at, like, discovery, if you were to look at the documents, welcome in, Angelina. I'd imagine if you were to look at the documents for Jordan's case, that probably some of those charges are really flimsy, and that they've actually thrown in a handful of really flimsy charges to bolster it, to get it up to 24 charges, to give them false negotiating power, essentially. Throwing in charges that they know that they can't prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Throwing in charges that they know could be easily argued against. It's a mind game. Because if you're like, well, we've got 24 charges against you, are you going to cooperate with us? They're more likely to cooperate than if you're like, yeah, we've got 5 charges against you. It does make you wonder how they knew he had guns, that's for sure. Yeah. And I think you're right there too. Because if Malaya's not talking, then possibly the other reason why they're pushing ahead with this stuff with Daniel is to get him out of the way. There won't be any plea deals now for any of them. They've left it way too long. And I'd imagine that in terms of evidence and stuff, based on the last press conference, I think from the way Rob McCammon was, I don't think they need anyone for them to offer a deal to now. Yeah, I think Malaya is a very complicated individual. I think there was definitely a lot of coercive control going on there. There was DV. So in that manner, I believe she was a victim. But when I look at Malaya's actions, when I look at the things that we do have that she's said, I actually believe that she is incredibly manipulative. And I think people overlook that because of the DV situation. Welcome in, Summer Breeze. Good to see you here. Could well do. Could well do. I'd love to know what their strategy is with all this. But I do think there's some strategizing going on in the background.
So if you are at excuse me, if you're at the trailer and you go through the backyard and then you go beyond the backyard and there seems to be a little bit of that clearing there.
It takes you to the old road.
Yeah, and then there's the old road, and then if you go beyond the old road, did you go back there at all?
No, we went in maybe about 20 feet. In, like, when you cross that road,
Yeah.
there's a bit of a field going up on a slope. We went in maybe 20 feet following, I'm assuming it was like a deer trail. It was an animal trail that we followed. It's the only trail that was open when we walked along the edging of the woods. And that only went in about 20 feet when all of a sudden it just kind of disappeared and everything was piled up. And it's like, okay, we know the kids ain't going to go beyond this. So we turned around and come back out, and then we followed the old dirt road. And that took us, gosh, I don't know if that was heading towards the pipeline at that point where that trail leads to from there. That way.
I feel exhausted just listening to all the searching they did. Summer Breeze, we're talking about Jordan with the weapons charges. I haven't quite got my bearings. I'm not sure whether Susan was referring to just going straight up the hill from, walking directly away from Gairlock Road, or whether she's referring to going up, sort of up behind Janie's RV and you're kind of off to the side. And as for the deer trails, I'm really not sure. But it certainly sounds like they covered a lot of area on the day that Belynda and her sister and that were in there searching. I'd love to maybe get like a map from Belynda or Chaucer, just sort of showing the areas that they're talking about. Yeah. This is the thing. When you throw in DV coercive control, that complicates the situation a lot. There are things to me that I think implicate Malaya in terms of the cover-up. But there's certainly nothing that would suggest that she was responsible for what happened to Lily and Jack. In fact, everything we hear seems to keep pointing to Daniel. But, I guess the question that arises is, why did Malaya choose to lie to the RCMP, to lie to the media, to go along with the fake narrative? And I think there's probably a lot of complicated psychology behind that. Yeah, I need to be careful what I'm saying there, but yeah.
Well, it was headed over towards Lansdowne Road area and the train tracks.
So where you were going, where you saw the animal trail and where it stopped, beyond that or in and around that area at all, was there any indications at all? And even when you were walking along the old road, was there any indications at all to you that there had been any sort of a vehicle or ATV or anything that had gone through that area?
Did we see a trail tire prints there? You know what? I don't remember, to be honest. I know there's a dump site off to the left of a bunch of garbage. There's an old well off to the right. We checked that out, but I never noticed. No, there was prints because even when we were walking, a vehicle, a truck, we went up one side because it splits to, the trail splits in two. We hung to the left, and the truck that come in, it went to the right of the path, but it only went in so far and parked, and then they got out, and I guess they were searching too. I don't know who they were, but
Okay. And
Yeah, Karen, Daniel is low-hanging fruit, and there are a number of things that raise questions in terms of Malaya, that's for sure. Now, listening to that part of the conversation, and there were some really good questions that Susan asked in this discussion. And like, you know, did you notice tire tracks or anything when you were walking in these areas? And I think Belynda and Chelsea seem to have taken things in different ways in terms of what they experienced when they were searching on that Saturday. And there's things that Chelsea noticed that Belynda didn't. And I respect Chelsea wanting to stay in the background. And I personally think that she's probably best staying off in the background. But I'd love to hear more of her thoughts on some of these things. Like, did she notice any particular tire tracks in places that maybe didn't belong, seemed out of place? You know, some of the things like that. And I know Chelsea's great with commenting when she's in chat or when she comments on videos afterwards. But it would be interesting to kind of put together a handful of questions for Belynda and Chelsea, like, you know, just behind the scenes, and see, you know, if there are things that Chelsea noticed that haven't been discussed. Yeah, anyway, I'm just reading comments there. Well, Daniel claims that it's the Starlink. Because remember he said that, like, people down on the road could use their Wi-Fi to make phone calls. So I wonder if Janie being able to call her brother from inside the RV was from Starlink. Because when you see her phone, it appears that it's all done through the Messenger app. Starlink is cell service. Okay, yeah.
on the Saturday.
yes,
And it was just a regular truck?
yes.
Like it wasn't, okay. Did they appear to be search and rescue?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
At least they weren't wearing orange vests.
Right. What time would this have been roughly on Saturday?
That was in the morning, so I'm assuming that would have been around 11.
So this is if you go if you go into Daniel's backyard and then you keep going through that clearing up to the old road, it's going along the old road towards the railway tracks, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. You're going towards Lansdowne Road is what you're doing, right?
Okay, now I get it. So, yeah, it is that clearing directly behind Janie's RV. So, first of all, you're actually heading away from Lansdowne Road to hit the track, and then you follow the track, and the track bends around and then heads towards Lansdowne. That's what they are discussing. Yeah, you can call 911 from anywhere. You don't need cell service. I think that truck that they're discussing, there's one point when Janie talks about a neighbour having a noisy truck, so maybe a neighbour was out searching the area as well. Who is Tim Miller? He is the founder of Texas EquiSearch. His daughter went missing probably close to 30 years ago now. She was found deceased, and he basically, after she was found deceased, he made a promise that no family would ever be alone in searching for missing children. And he's basically, he's made it his life's work. Oh, cool. Texas Killing Fields documentary. Does that tell his daughter's story as well? Because I've only seen sort of articles and things like that, but I would love to see a documentary. Because, you know, he's an amazing man. He truly is.
When you follow that so far back into the woods, it cut through one part of the woods and it took us to a stream that runs down through. And we could not cross the stream unless we wanted to go up to thighs for the most.
Hang on, I'm going to run that back just a little bit, because when Belynda was saying this, I was thinking about like Daniel and his running through waist deep water. And this area that she's talking about, I believe that the pond that she's talking about is the one that the RCMP couldn't get a boat onto. And I would just really like to know if they've got like an ROV into there.
Through that clearing up to the old road, it's going along the old road towards the railway tracks, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. You're going towards Lansdowne Road is what you're doing, right?
Yeah, when you follow that so far back into the woods, it cut through one part of the woods and it took us to a stream.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification on that, BT2B. A lot of people here in Australia who do that whole road tripping thing, because, you know, you're talking about areas that are just like way, way in the middle of nowhere out the back of Whoop Whoop. And there's a lot of people here in Australia that have Starlink on top of their vans and things. So, yeah, it's not cell service, it is internet provided by Musk, which, you know, personally, I wouldn't want to use it for that reason. But it basically means that you can access internet from satellites pretty much anywhere. Starlink costs $120 per month in Nova Scotia. That's a lot of money. Wow.
That runs down through, and we could not cross the stream unless we wanted to go up to thighs for the most, some parts of it, other parts it might have been up to our knees.
Okay.
And I think that's a stream that comes from a small little lake, and I think that's where Daniel said the beaver dam is.
Okay. Was the area swampy at all?
There's a lot of swamp holes, but a good portion of the woods on the right-hand side of the old road, that's
Yeah.
all going uphill, so that's all pretty dry, but you'll come across like I call them just mud holes or moss holes that all of a sudden you'll put your foot in and you got a wet foot.
Well, that's really interesting. I knew from like looking at the maps, especially looking at the LiDAR maps, that there were a lot of areas. But hearing Belynda describe it that way about the mud holes and the moss in the mud holes and stuff like that, the thing that comes to mind straight away was when Daniel was talking to the dog handlers. This is his account, of course. He says that one of the dog handlers asked him, "Where do you think I should search?" And Daniel made some sort of snarky comment of, "Oh, you'd think they would have prepared beforehand and know where they want to search." And Daniel claims that he said he told them to search areas near water where the ground would be softer and easier to dig into, or, essentially saying, look for areas where the ground's boggy or muddy, because that's the best place to bury someone. So hearing all these areas, like hearing that the place is just dotted with all these mud holes and everything, that's concerning. Although at the same time, Daniel did seem pretty confident that the children weren't in the woods. I'm just kind of trying to follow my thought process there, but it's certainly interesting. And again, it seems to be an area that Daniel has spoken about as well. Yes, trying to put that up. The only victims are the children. And I've said, and I know this is an unpopular opinion, my belief is that in her relationship with Daniel, Malaya was a victim. But when it comes to the disappearance of Lily and Jack, Malaya was not a victim. I do want to recognise, though, that there are complicated psychological issues as well, but I don't think that excuses her in any way. Because to me, it feels that she has continued to lie. I may be wrong, but it does, and I will be doing a video on it, but it does certainly appear that she has continued to lie.
Okay.
Water gathers around roots of the trees and that. There's a couple of little swamps off to the left of that road because that's going downhill.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a couple of little swamps there.
Okay. Okay.
Now, the thing that I find interesting, I'm not sure who owns the wood rights to those woods up and behind there now where that old road is, but that's being clear cut right now. That whole area is clear cut right out.
Sorry, the area, where is it from?
Where that old road is, they're
Yeah.
hauling wood out of there. And if you go to new aerial photos, I don't know if Tim's got some new ones out. I know somebody put one out, and it's clear cut. All the trees are gone. They're all chopped down. Everything's cut down.
That's many, many years too late, in my opinion. Because it sounds like they just never did a cleanup after the Fiona went through. I've got to agree with you. I really do. I mean, the running through waist deep water ahead of the helicopters and the I can imagine him just, thinking he's dodging drones and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, that photo, she was high as a kite and drinking, definitely. That's for sure. I'm really curious about these swampy areas. Because when you look at the lay of the land, there's a lot of areas where you have like, I need to have another look at the LiDAR maps that I've got, because there is so many areas when you look at the LiDAR maps that are just spotted with water area. Yeah, I think, sadly, I think that it's a forest management issue in terms of the fire risk. Thanks for coming in, Summer Breeze. Get some rest. I think the reason that they're clear cutting that area is because of all the dead wood that's down, which would just rip through in a fire. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, I hope they're going to replant it after they've cleared the area, because that is a heck of a lot of area to be clearing. Especially when you hear this comment like, you tread on moss and your foot sinks down. And some of the descriptions, it doesn't sound like you'd want kids to be going very far unsupervised. Kids don't need a great deal of depth when it comes to water to drown. Right. So some of those boggy areas will have dried out later. Presumably they get boggy when there's all the snow and everything. Oh. Oh, wow. The pulp and paper companies own Crown land. It's a tiny province. They aerial spray glyphosate to kill all the hardwoods. It's grim for the environment. That's got to go into the ground as well. If they're spraying stuff on the hardwoods to kill the hardwoods, that's going to go into the ground. Do they have like plantations as well? Because there was quite a lot of when forestry was everywhere down in Tasmania, they had plantations everywhere. And another one of the things that they did that is horrible and bad for the environment, bad all round, but the forestry companies in Australia, there were forestry companies, they probably still do it, who, when they put in plantations and they've got the young trees, they don't want native animals going in and foraging and damaging the trees. So what they do, and it's something that's kind of kept hush-hush, and a lot of people still don't know that it happens, is that they basically fly over the plantations and they drop like mass quantities of carrots and stuff from flying over these plantations. And that's originally to encourage the wildlife to eat the carrots. But then after they've been doing that for a while, they lace the carrots with 1080. They lace the carrots with poison and then drop them from planes and poison the animals so that they don't destroy their plantations. It's just so wrong. So wrong. And from what I've heard, animals that die from 1080 poisoning die a painful, slow, horrendous death. But it's swept under the carpet. It's the sort of practices that are used by some forestry companies are just hideous. Absolutely hideous. I'm just having a look at yeah, I do think that the children are buried somewhere where they don't think they'll be found. No plantations, just clear cutting and leaving the slag. You know, when I look at pictures of Canada and when I look at pictures like where Charles has been out hiking and stuff like that, it's beautiful. It shouldn't be something that's just clear cut and ripped up and destroyed. Like, doesn't the Nova Scotia government understand the beauty of the area? Because honestly, from all the photos I've seen, Nova Scotia is just beautiful. And they just allow that. Wildlife bait stations have rabies inoculation. Oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting. Not only that, it's not just the flooding that you get, but when you start clear felling the trees, you get the erosion as well. And some areas, that erosion can be that really insidious tunnel erosion. So you might have areas where there's heavier clay and you get the water seeping down under the ground and forming tunnels, and it collapses in and you get no vegetation growing on top again because you've lost the topsoil. Even if you get flooding when you've just clear felled an area, you get the topsoil just washed out. Um, goes up like a tinderbox with the tree cover removed as well. Yeah. Sadly, that's always the story, isn't it? Always the story. Comes down to the economy. And look, I've seen the effect on small towns that rely on logging when logging companies pull out. So I understand the economic side of it. But oh now this is interesting. The province, in partnership with federal 2 billion trees program, is funding the planting of up to 21 million trees by 2031. These fully funded projects restore biodiversity, replace trees lost. I'm going to have to look into that. That sounds like a good program. And I think that is one of the issues, I think, and that is why they are completely clearing that area right now, is if you got a fire through there, it would rip through with all that dead wood. Now, thankfully, you guys don't have eucalyptus, because here, if we get a bushfire, eucalyptus trees will explode. They have so much oil in them. So thankfully you've got that, but definitely, there's a greater risk of major destruction. When you've got that much on the ground, the fires can go through so hot and so fast that it kills the trees. So, some bushfires that go through, the trees are going to survive. Oh, pines and conifers do. Yeah, actually they do, don't they? I know, here a lot of people are always like, if there's pine trees anywhere, people are always after the pine cones for starting their fires and things like that. Wow. Yeah, things are wow. Yeah, things are kind of a mess in some places, that's for sure. Trees are being poached for selling on the black market to make musical instruments, maple, oak, and beech. I would imagine because they'd be very expensive woods. Anyway, let's go on with a bit more of Lily and Jack.
Okay. And so when did you notice that? Or did you just see the aerial photos?
I just seen the aerial photos, but when you drive by Daniels, you'll see the piles of wood up by the road that's being hauled out.
Okay. Well, that's interesting.
I thought it was.
And you're right. I wonder who owns the rights of that. If that's Crown land or...
Well, I know there's a strip of property between Daniels and I think it's up in back of that black house there in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's owned by Woodlot Company, but I didn't know that went right up in by the old road. But I know the clear cut is all throughout that area.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it could be Crown land. But it would...
Question in terms of timing, how long does it take the wood to dry out enough to be usable in any way? Welcome in, Dodie. I mean, I'm guessing that the timber companies, when you look at the images, it's all been cut in straight lengths and everything. So clearly, you know, it is being used as timber. It's not being like turned into paper or anything like that. But it's interesting that we're looking, what, 4 or 5 years on since Fiona went through and now they're doing it. And I'm just wondering if there's a reason for the timing. Just a random thought, just putting it out there.
Relatively easy to find out. And are they still doing it, or
The last time we drove by, yes. And
when was that?
When did I pick up papers? Last month.
Okay. Sorry, you picked up papers, or if you don't want to explain it, you don't have to either.
Oh no, it was just dropping papers off to the courthouse.
Oh, okay. Okay. Have you ever gone back to search at all?
No. Well, not around Daniel's area. I've gone to other areas.
Right.
So it's not that they've let it lay to dry out or anything. This isn't like a post cleanup thing where they've gone, okay, well, we've let it lay there for 4 years to dry out and now we're cleaning it up. It's interesting that they're going through now. Maybe it's just they just got to that area. It's like, let's do this area next. But I hate seeing places where trees have just been completely clear cut, because it is such a disaster. Kiln-dried lumber takes days or weeks, while traditional air drying requires a rule of thumb 1 year per inch of thickness to reach stability. So air dried would take several years then for it to be adequately dried. I mean, I guess when you look at the amount of timber that is down in the area, it's certainly more than what you would be able to kiln dry. That's thanks for that. That's interesting. Most timber yards are going to kiln dry the wood. But if you've seen any of the search footage, there is a lot of trees down in that area. So, you know, in terms of cartage and stuff like that, in terms of the cost of putting it through a timber kiln, it just may not have been practical. Yeah, but they wouldn't be using it for firewood though, because they're cutting it straight. It's long straight lengths. You know, yeah, firewood does dry in one summer, but if you're air drying it for lumber, it needs to be drier. Deadfall doesn't make good lumber. I guess because you're going to get it rotting out and stuff like that. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense completely. True. That makes sense as well.
Lyric Road and those areas, but not around Daniel's property at all, no.
Right. So you noticed where Malaya went to search with Please Bring Me Home.
Mm-hmm.
So whereabouts was that roughly, would you say? Or do you know?
From my understanding, there's about 4 different locations that were searched. The pipeline was one of them.
Yeah.
One's down further. You see, I'm not familiar with the names of the areas because it changes from about 50 feet and all of a sudden you're in a different community. So I'm not familiar with the names. But they were quite spread out with their searching from what I know of.
Right. I'm just curious if it would have been in that area where they're logging, where they're clear cutting.
I don't believe so because, like I said, that's right up handy Daniel's property.
Right.
And
there were some photos from that search where they did show some massive piles that have been cleared. So I think some of the area that they were searching might have been where it was clear felled. In terms of search areas, I know where they found that that other boot print that they got all excited about. I'm pretty sure that was mentioned that it was in the vicinity of the area on the pipeline where those original prints were found. Because they were trying to sell it to people in terms of, oh, look, we now found another print in the same area. Well, there you go. The study of forestry is called Silvix. It means tree in Latin. Sylvia means girl of the trees. I've just learnt something new. Thank you for that. That's really cool.
there are quite a few private property signs now.
Sorry, there are private property signs where?
Just about everywhere down around there now. It's amazing how many properties have become private.
It's weird, right?
Yeah.
And I just want to add to that, because I distinctly remember this being discussed. All those private property signs went up just before the first Please Bring Me Home search. I think it was Janie that said that. You can drag it out for burning in a stove, but even that, you have to dry it well, and anything that's starting to rot, punky wood, smokes too much and you get creosote. Too many fires. Aha. That's interesting, but that makes a lot of sense. It really does look sus to me that you have all these properties now that have private property signs on them, and that this all happened just before the Please Bring Me Home search.
It's really weird. So these private property signs, are they all like from, let's say, Lansdowne Road all the way as far as you can go to, let's say, New Glasgow? Or are they just literally in the Lansdowne area of, let's say, Daniel's property area?
I would say the Lansdowne area.
The Lansdowne area. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Says a lot, doesn't it? The fact that these private property signs are all around the Lansdowne area, basically, mostly around Mackenzie and Martell properties by the sounds of it. Yeah, same here. I would be willing to bet that every private property sign is on Martell or Mackenzie property, or that it is close to Martell Mackenzie property, like it's Crown land, and they don't want people going through there because they're going to end up on Martell or Mackenzie property, in my opinion. Oh, heck yeah. Heck yeah. And when you look at the Google Street View stuff, Ron clearly has a timber mill on his property, just, one of those portable things that you run it through and strip the bark and everything. Because, well, you see the piles now also at Gairloch Road. But from looking at Street View going back, Ron had these piles of wood on his property that had been processed. So, it wouldn't be hard. And I mean, I know some of it's boggy, but he could have gone and actually cut wood for himself. It does, doesn't it? They really took advantage. Maxing out, well, we don't know if it's max out, but constantly buying things on Paddy's card, having Earl buy groceries, having Earl and possibly Ron provide firewood, living rent-free in the trailer, with Janie moving into that RV out the back. And working 1 day a week, spot on. I wonder too how much of that was Daniel being incredibly good at manipulating people, because we've heard the way he talks, the way he manipulates. He's very good at talking the talk, and he really does seem like he feels like he's out of his depth now, which to me says that he's probably had his whole life of manipulating people and getting his own way. So I think they just kind of fell into it, got manipulated that way. You were told that they paid $800 a month to Janie for rent, and Malaya paid for the big pile of lumber that was in the driveway. Well, that's interesting, because Janie says that they didn't have to pay rent, and that the agreement was for Daniel to help around the property. And I think even Malaya said that. I think it's even mentioned in the documents that Malaya said that. I'm pretty certain that the documents actually state that Malaya said that the agreement was that Daniel helped Janie with fences and things like that. I'll have to go back to that. Because I'd be very surprised if they were paying rent to Janie, because it seems like Janie has said that that wasn't the case, and it seems like Malaya stated that to detectives very early on. Yeah, Janie commented that Daniel wasn't paying rent as well. If they paid rent, it was through a government scheme like Section 8 here in the US. Yeah. And it also could be, yes, you had the uncles also saying that he was taking advantage of her and not paying. I'd be interested to know your source, just the facts, because it seems like I've certainly not heard of that. And I will definitely have to go back to the documents, but I'm pretty certain that the statement from Malaya in the documents was essentially that the agreement was that Daniel helped around. Wade also said that they weren't paying rent. Yeah. Well, we know the washer was broken. We definitely know the washer was broken. Wouldn't surprise me if the stove was also broken. You right, Tucker? Oh, poor old dog. She gets uncomfortable. She has to get up and move. Needs to get the bones moving a bit. Now, I had hoped to push on, but I'm just going to. I actually have no idea where I'm at in the transcripts right now. Oh, geez, I wish we had something like that in Australia for people. There are so many people who are being priced out of the rental market now. Because there's very little assistance. There is government housing available for people, but the wait list is like 6-7 years long. So if people can't get into government housing, what we're seeing now is suddenly so many people are being priced out of the rental market. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up because Tarka's getting quite fidgety, and I think she probably needs me to take her outside and give her attention and stuff like that. So it's probably a good spot to wrap it up. I had hoped to finish getting through this audio, but I actually think I've still got quite a bit left. There's still about 15 minutes worth of audio to get through, so I might tackle that in a separate live stream. So thanks for coming in, guys. I've really enjoyed the chat today, like just learning the different things about the forestry and about housing and stuff like that. It's fascinating, and if I could, I'd sit here and continue chatting about it, because it seems like Canada's got a better grip on housing than than Australia does. That's for sure. Yeah, just reading comments, loving those comments. I'll have to go and have a look at them again later. Okay, so thanks for coming in, people. If you haven't hit the like button, please do so. Hit the like button on the way out. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe. If you're listening on replay, please leave a comment. Even if you're just listening now, please feel free to come back and leave a comment. I've enjoyed the chat today heaps. So thanks for coming in, and I'll catch you in the next one.